But I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the people who aren't here in the room. This has been obviously a tremendously difficult year for the Schick family. Dr. David Schick's passing between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is a loss that's felt by our entire community. And so our hearts go out to you, to your daughters, to your son-in-laws, your grandchildren. Know that we are with you, our hearts are with you, and that throughout the difficult days ahead, we're just a phone call away, and probably we'll call you first. On September 24th, in Dallas, a 29-year-old man climbed on a rooftop across from the ICE facility and opened fire. September 24th, this past year. Just a few days ago. Indiscriminate shooting. One detainee dead, 2 critically injured. Moments later, the gunman turned the weapon on himself. Federal officials called it a targeted act of violence. Let's be clear. How our country treats immigrants is at times inhumane and shouldn't be tolerated. But violence is not the answer. Violence doesn't heal, it only multiplies brokenness. And that, I fear, is where we are as a society. A culture so frayed that outrage erupts into bullets. A culture so hardened that compassion can't breathe. What used to be rude has now become dangerous. What used to be a disagreement now often ends in death. This summer, in Midtown Manhattan, a man was shot point blank. No robbery, no theft, just rage. Just a world where human life has become so cheap that a stranger can be killed for nothing. And then came a report about United Healthcare. An algorithm, not a doctor, not a human being with compassion in their eyes. A company denied millions of claims. People suffered or died because a machine said no. That isn't just a broken system, that's a broken ethic. A society that has forgotten how to feel. And in the aftermath, someone in his own twisted rage decided the answer was to shoot the CEO. Tragedy piled on top of injustice. We're not only living through a crisis of systems, we're living through a crisis of the soul. Consider this. The United States has a 5.6 homicide per 100,000 people, the highest amongst G7 nations. Canada's rate is 1.98. Japan's is 0.23. These aren't statistics, they're tombstones. In a country where children carry bulletproof backpacks, where parents hold their breath during math class waiting for the phone not to buzz, what more evidence do we need? We don't need new laws. We need new norms. We need a new culture. A culture of empathy, a culture of shared responsibility, a culture that says with conviction, every life matters, every single one. This summer, Sharon and I traveled to Banff. I'm not going to go off about how great Sharon is, Brad. I do think Julie's great, though. Sharon and I went to Banff, British Columbia, for a place where 4 million tourists a year travel. 4 million tourists a year, and the place is spotless. No graffiti, no trash, just silence, beauty, and care. It felt sacred to me, not because of rules, but because of culture. People treating the land and each other with reverence. No one's standing around telling people to pick up their garbage. People just don't throw garbage. That's what culture does. It doesn't just regulate us, it shapes us. It creates an atmosphere. The unseen water we swim in, the air we breathe, that is culture. And the question in these days of awe is this: what kind of water are we swimming in here? And what kind of water do we want for our children? This isn't an environmental sermon. This is a sermon about culture. And swimming in it is just a metaphor. Judaism insists that culture can change. Abraham didn't just smash his idols, he smashed a way of life. The Midrash says, Kol olam kulo me'ever echad, v'hu haya me'ever echad. That the entire world was on one side and Abraham was on an entirely different side. He was bringing a message to the world that only he could bring, and it started with one person. Abraham's greatness was his courage. The courage to say, I'm not going to swim in those waters anymore. I'm going to lech lecha, get up and leave, and find a better place and start over because the culture in which I'm living is broken. And God knew. When the Israelites longed for Egypt because they had just left and they couldn't conceive of another way of living, God scolded them and said, there is a promised land that's better than where you came from. And God gave them new rhythms for living. God called that Shabbat. God said there can be holy places, and God called that the Mishkan. God said there can be better foods to eat and gave us manna. Because you can't just legislate morality. You have to cultivate it. One breath, one ritual, one act, one gesture of caring at a time. In New York in the 1980s, they noticed that if you ignored broken windows and graffiti, crime flourished. So they fixed the windows, cleaned the trains, painted over the graffiti, and slowly crime began to drop. It was a cultural shift. Because when people see others care, then they care also. Culture shifted, not overnight, not by a miracle, but by intention. And here's the part that gives me hope. I see cultural change being built here in this building every single day. When I walk into the preschool, I hear it before I see it, the shuffle of little feet, the sudden squeals of joy, the voices calling out, Rabbi, Rabbi! Then the stampede. 3- and 4-year-olds rushing towards me, arms outstretched, faces glowing with the purest kind of love. And sometimes they even wipe their nose on my leg. They don't care what I preached last week. They don't want anything but to give a hug. And in that tidal wave of love, all the noise in the world fades away. Violence, anger, division disappears. What's left is a reminder that we are created to love, created to connect, created to care. And I see it beyond the preschool. When a note of comfort arrives in the mail, when an aliyah is offered in memory of a loved one, when a blood drive is organized again and again, binding us to strangers in ways we might never have otherwise met. Jews and non-Jews alike, who will wake up tomorrow because of this community's generosity. This is what gives me hope. We already know how to build a better culture. We're already doing it. We just have to choose to do it again and again and again. So this year I'm asking us to make a new kind of resolution, A second pledge I'm asking for tonight. Not a private one, but a communal one. So you've seen those stickers that you get after you vote. Right? It says, I voted. It's a way of letting people know that that's an important civic responsibility. So this year, you'll see something else. And I'm giving them out. They're right outside the door. I made up these little car magnets. You just stick them on your car. I think they would go good over your gas cover. And they say the following: I took the pledge. Actually, some say I took the pledge, some say I accepted the pledge. There was a disagreement about the wording, because we're a shul. And beneath it says GHC, Greenberg Hebrew Center, or goodness, humility, and compassion. The magnets are available in our lobby, free if you're willing to take the pledge. And the pledge goes like this. There are cards also, so if you don't want a magnet, you could just have a card. The card says the following: I pledge to live with goodness, humility, and compassion, to practice kindness not as an exception but as the norm, to forgive when it's hard, to thank when it's easy, to care for the vulnerable, the grieving, and the forgotten. It means I've pledged to live with goodness, humility, and compassion, and to help build a kinder culture. So if you take a magnet and you stick it on your car, you're going to have to explain it. When people come up to you and say, what's this all about? You're going to have to say, I took the pledge to make this world a better place. I'm doing it. Maybe you should do it. You remember those Dobbs Ferry pace cars? Do you remember that? For those of you who don't remember, there were these little bumper stickers that people put on their cars that made sure that they pledged they weren't going to go beyond the speed limit. It was also a way of warding off people who would go crazy by how slow you were driving. But the idea was the same, and that was we can make a change, one person at a time, to care for people. So if you take a magnet or a card and people say to you, what does that mean? I ask you, I beg of you, please spread the word, spread the vision, because culture change can be contagious. It's not a pledge to be perfect, it's just a pledge to participate, to help build a culture where kindness isn't random but expected, where gratitude isn't rare but a reflex, where forgiveness isn't a weakness but a strength. Imagine next Yom Kippur pulling into the parking lot and seeing a sea of car magnets. Not badges of self-righteousness, but signs of hope, signs of community. Hillel once said to a convert, what's hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That's the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and learn it. The Torah is not a library of information. It's a blueprint for transformation. And on these holy days, we don't say, Chatati, Aviti, Pashati, I sinned. We say, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu. We all sinned. Because culture isn't someone else's job, it's ours. And if we help shape it, then by God, we can reshape it. Not with headlines, but with whispers, with daily choice, speaking kindly about someone who isn't in the room, thanking the custodian by name, writing a note of appreciation, forgiving someone who doesn't know how to ask. These aren't small, they're enormous. They are the bricks in the foundation of a new culture. And this is why the Dallas shooting haunts me. Yes, our systems are cruel. Yes, our treatment of immigrants is a stain on our nation. But when despair erupts into rage, when injustice leads to violence, all we can do, all we ever have done, is sink deeper into the darkness. The only way forward is cultural transformation. A culture that insists every single human life is precious and no cause is served by taking that away. The magnets are real. They'll be waiting for you in the lobby. Free. But only if you take the pledge. And only if you're willing to spread the word. The Sfat Emet, one of great Hasidic commentaries, teaches on Rosh Hashanah we're judged not only for who we are, but for who we're becoming. So let us become a people who don't wait for the world to get better, but who begin to make it so. A community where kindness is the air we breathe, where hope is not fragile but fierce, where goodness, humility, and compassion are not words on a magnet but words that shape our lives. And may we together stand before God and say with pride and conviction, I took the pledge. I accepted the responsibility. Gemar Chatima Tova. May we all be sealed for a year of goodness, humility, and compassion. Shana Tova.